Welcome to the Dark Zone, an adventure racing podcast.
So figure out who you are, what your strengths are, and what you could contribute, right? It doesn't have to be big contribution, right? But I feel like the base teams that I've been to, we all bring something different, but combined strength is just makes us so much better if there's just 3 copies of the same person, 4 copies of the same person. Learn from everybody, right? But figure out who you are and what sport means to you.
Well, for me, the action is the juice. I'm in.
Oh, how can you not be romantic about adventure racing?
It's a metaphor.
I know it's a metaphor.
Say the word, Chef.
Let it rip.
Welcome to the Dark Zone Adventure Racing Podcast. This is your host, Brian Gatens. There's guests show up in different ways to the podcast, right? There's race director recommendations, there's race results, there's other media. And then there are teammates that say you have to talk to this person. And I woke up to an email from a text message from a teammate of our guests saying she has to be on your show, and CC'd her on the text message. And I was highly encouraged to invite Olga Huber onto the show by her teammate, Megan. Megan was a previous guest on the Dark Zone, and I'm grateful that Megan fed Olga to the Dark Zone machine. I will confess that Olga has been on the short list of Dark Zone guests for quite a while. And I love the fact that her recent results at America's Toughest Race, Expedition Oregon, was so strong. And we are delighted to have Olga on the show. So, Olga, welcome to the Dark Zone. It's great to see you across the internet. We see each other at races a whole lot. To start off, tell us a bit about yourself and your adventure racing.
Thank you, Brian, for having me on the show. I guess kind of going back how it's all started kind of thing, right? That's what you're thinking of. I grew up, and I guess I'm just going to put it out there, considering my accent is pretty pronounced. I'm not, American-born person. I am born and raised in Russia. I came to US when I was 25. And my sport back in Russia was Nordic skiing. I raced in high school. I raced in college. So when I came to US, I realized when people say, hey, I ski in US, they mean downhill skiing. When the Russian person say I ski, we mean Nordic. So I thought, I don't think there's a really Nordic skiing, so what I'm going to do? But during the summer, we were doing trail runs, right, as a sport. So I switched to trail running. I became trail running. I did some ultra runs and what have you. But I would go visit every year my best friend, Liana, in Moscow. And once I went visit, they started orienteering there. I said, that's kind of cool. I have a running portion down. So how do I learn how to navigate? And luckily, I live in Rochester, New York, and we have fantastic Rochester Orienteering Club that puts together 2 events a month, national events and what have you, raw games and have you. So I kind of just contacted them, and they have a training exercise where people could show up to follow. And I just show up one day at local park, and Stina Bridgman, who became my teammate, was there. And we ended up running in the woods for 3 hours with map and a compass. I've never done anything like that. And I think that worked really well because Stina was looking for somebody to do raw gains with. I had a running portion down, have no idea about navigation, and we started doing 24-hour raw gains together. Stina got into adventure racing. So I said, kind of cool, but I don't really bike and I don't really paddle. So Stina told me about mountain biking. I got a mountain bike, started biking, told me about paddling. I got a kayak, started paddling, and here we are. And I think because we live so close to kind of Canada, I think the first couple of races I've done were Canadian races. I think Storm at Trent was my first like a solo, really, really short race. And then I think we did a Wilderness Traverse. That was my first 24-hour race. And that was maybe, 8-9 years ago now, something like this. And after that, kind of feels rolled out. I started Fragile Flowers team and been kind of doing it ever since.
And so clearly what happened was that you had some competitive base as a child living in Russia. You came here by virtue of geography, right? Where you live, there's that,
Yes.
and that Western New York, that vibe, that orienteering vibe they are very strong. It's a great organization up there. And you wish that everybody had access to that. We very often say that orienteering is the gateway to adventure racing, right? There's, they're cousins like sports, right? That map and compass and in the woods and all of that. And so you followed that usual path of, I like doing this, I'll try this and off I go. But you kind of went through it kind of quickly. You said, okay, I got a mountain bike and I began to paddle. What was your growth like there? Like, did you take to the mountain bike right away? Did you take to the paddling right away? Or was there a steep learning curve for you learning those skills?
So, and I think this is sometime maybe in advice. Sometimes you see people post an adventure racing discussion group, right? And say, how could I get an adventure racing? Where do I start? And I feel like if I will look back on my own experience, I would say, why don't you think about it as a separate sport and find yourself a group for each of those disciplines, right? And I think that worked well for me because Stina, I had a running part down, trekking and all of that. I could make myself any kind of running plans, trekking plans with navigation with Stina. But when it comes to mountain biking, you can, what ended up happening, I started looking for local groups, and lucky for me, it was a local group that have actually women-specific mountain biking courses offered right around the time when I started from a single track academy. So that was great because we had, and I think this is sometimes, again, I'm kind of talking about I race on all female teams. Women learning from other women really helps us to get better in that environment. We learn differently, so I think that really helped me to learn that, being kind of in that environment. With paddling, Stina again Stuart Bridgman was very willing to take me along, to explain to me everything. We went she's also very particular on safety. So before we went anywhere paddling, we talked about how to re-enter the boat and make sure you bring a paddle float and all of this kind of stuff. So I started paddling with Stina, and now I have another group that I kind of paddle regularly, locally, that I keep up.
So it sounds like what you did was you took a very systematic approach to it. You said to yourself, like, we know that the running was taken care of and the orienteering was done through the club, but you said to yourself, like, I need to develop my mountain biking skills rather than just mountain biking on your own. You found the club. Blessedly, the club had a female specific segment, right? So you could work there, and you mentioned the idea of women working with women tends to be very powerful. We had the team from SOAR on, and they had the women's only adventure racing camp, right? And in their episode, they talked a lot about how that was an purposeful dynamic of that. And then the paddling you picked up with Tristina.
I actually did a navigation clinic at a SOAR workshop.
So say more about that. So how did it feel then to become the teacher?
It was fantastic from the point that I feel like that sport gave so much to me. So that was so great to give back to the sport. I really want to do more of it. I don't need really any money or anything, but I think that was just such a great ability, give me an option to share what I've learned with other people and have them progress, right? Because what happened was we met on Friday, and come Sunday was a little rock game that we did, and everybody who learned did so fantastic on Sunday, right? Everybody have their own routes and everybody get to practice just to see people apply the skills. That was just so valuable for me, and I feel so thankful for being able to do that. So thank you for Jill Tillman and Britt and Kathleen to putting that together. I hope they'll do more of it, because I think everybody who attended, from people who presented as well as people who attended, feel like that was such a great time together.
Yeah. The feedback coming out of that weekend was very, very strong. That that crew that put that together did a really nice job balancing, like anything else, the idea of community, skills, and being together. Right, those three things were brought together, and factoring in the competition with the orienteering on Sunday. It's funny you bring that up too, because I had the chance to talk to Mark Latanzi on AR School for his Cerberus race, and he talked about how one of his dynamics was that he wanted to have community built into the experience, like 12 hours of racing, community, 12 hours racing, community. It sounds like the community portion of adventure racing has really resonated with you. Can you talk a bit about that?
I guess because oftentimes in the races, we just race against each other, right? We don't get a chance to, hey, let's talk. Because before race, we're so focused, and some teams wouldn't, just kind of so focused. We don't have time or don't want to talk to our teams. We just kind of really focus. Maybe you see each other on the race, say hi, bye, give each other a high five during the race. And then once you finish 24-hour efforts, you kind of sleepy and what have you. So unless it's nationals, when sometime, hey, we're staying overnight, right? And maybe this is maybe the only time I could think of people really get a few hours to kind of to socialize, right? Maybe some bigger metropolitan areas or bigger teams that get together for training weekends, it's an option.
Right.
As far as that, I think that we don't have that option to kind of get together.
Yeah.
I also did not my own training, but I attended a training as an attendee few weeks before Oregon from Bob Miller at Wilderness Traverse. They put together a training camp in Canada, and I went to that as well. And I learned a ton, but it also was really good to just chat about everything and kind of in a relaxed atmosphere and don't be stressed out about gear bins and checkpoints and hours and such.
Yeah, you're right about that. You know, there's two things I think of. One is one of my favorite times of a race is that sliver of time when the race is over and everybody's in and they're safe and we leave to go home.
Yeah.
And there's that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours where we're all sort of eating pizza, having something to drink, sort of just hanging out with each other. And that kind of disperses, right? And I love the sharing of the stories and the maps. And I do know that for nationals this year, which will be down in Bentonville, Arkansas, one piece of feedback that was given to the organizing committee that people really want to have the banquet. They really want to have an event in which everybody who's there, who pours himself into the 30-hour race, has a chance to break bread together. Right? And I love the fact that you're reflective about that the community does something, and it's important for us to do that because we share a lot inside of a race. But because we're racing and we're getting ready for a race, we don't always have that inside the race experience itself.
And a just feeling of belonging to the community too, right? So for some of us who we raced few years, right? So I come back, hey, people kind of know who I am. I know who people are. So as we kind of maybe right night for check in, we get this. For people who are totally new to the sport, they have no idea who other people are. So they might feel kind of as outsiders. So if we do this kind of get-togethers, I think it really kind of helps everybody feel included.
Right. And the other part of it too, Olga, we both know this, is that when we go to work on Monday morning and somebody asks what we did this weekend, when we tell them, they don't believe us. Because not adventure racers are kind of like, okay, whatever. Like they're not into it like we are.
But now I'm going to tell, you know what? There's that podcast of A Dark Zone that I recorded with Brian. I'm going to send you the link. How about that?
You're a one-person marketing machine. You're my new favorite person, Olga. I love that. And so clearly, based on your upbringing, based on your geography and your personality, you took to the sport really very quickly, right? It sounds like you enjoyed it right away. You named your team Fragile Flowers. Talk a bit about that name choice.
So I could not claim to come up with that word. Barbara Nice Mace came with that word. Okay. It was her kind of, she managed like International Fragile Flowers group and what have you. So when I was starting a team locally, kind of as all started, I thought about the name. I really like the name. So I contacted Barbara and I said, is it okay if I use the name? She said, sure, as long as you let me race with you sometime. I said, sure, no problem. Right. And that's how it became kind of a thing, because I feel like we all fragile in a sense. Not kind of female specifically, right? We all have our ups and downs, but it's kind of play on words too.
Right, and it's become a bit of a thing, a bit of a brand, right? People recognize the name on a starting list. Oh, Fragile Flowers is here. Fragile Flowers is here. So how has that? So as you've gone from an individual to a teammate to now somebody who raced with a lot of different people, how has that growth in you as a teammate changed your perspective on the sport?
I am considering I've done more, I started expedition racing in 2022, right? So the last 3 years I added the expedition racing, where I think the team dynamic is playing so much bigger role than in 24 hours, right? I mean, you have a little bit here and there, maybe disagreements on the 24 hours. You can manage certain things, right? If you're out there for 6 days and things are not working right, it's not going to work as well, right? So I think as a person, I learned myself to manage those relationships better. And I think still learning, right? So it's one of those things. And the kind of in general, I guess, when you talk about how I got in the different disciplines, I think the idea of a personal improvement is really important for me, kind of in any area of my life. Would it be in family life, in my sports, or I also do like partner dancing kind of a thing. So within a kind of each of those disciplines, I want to get better in whatever I'm doing. And I think this is definitely, I feel like I want to get better working with my teammates, be a better teammate as myself for other people.
Yeah, and to that point, like I had that same crash course, right? Like I would very often I would race with the same people, and we got along really well. But we it was funny. We passed a point where we began to get better at the racing, and as a result, we wanted to, and because we were building our skills, we wanted to get better results, right? Because it's we're more than just sweaty tourists, right? It's still a race. It's not an adventure walk. It's an adventure race. And I found for myself, too, that I really had to take a hard look at myself, the kind of teammate that I was, that I needed to communicate better. I needed to be more thoughtful. I needed to do a lot of other things to get better. As someone who's dedicated to personal improvement, someone who has high standards for themselves, what did you find about yourself that you needed to work on, you needed to improve? What were the gaps in your where you were to where you wanted to be? So
I need to, we always could listen more, right? So this is one of the areas. And I keep thinking, I work as a project manager for a software company, right? So I talk to clients day in and day out. And some of my clients are great to work with, and some of them are real pain behind to work with, right? But I do that. I have that skill. So I keep thinking, hey, Olga, why couldn't you apply all the skills to your racing? Why sometimes it gets a little more personal during the racing time? So for me to start thinking of this kind of as a team, hey, it's a project, right? How do we work together? Kind of helped me, especially once I start expedition racing.
So that's a really nice crossover between your work life and your racing life, right? The idea that you see the races, to your point, as a project, and everybody has a job and has a role we want to get from here to there. So that's how you wanted to improve. What skill set did you have naturally that was a strength that you brought to it right away? What were you good at from the very beginning?
I'm an extrovert, right? I kind of like to talk to people. I kind of like, hey, what do you guys think about this? So like being on the teams when people wouldn't talk to each other or, wouldn't involve anybody in decision was kind of hard for me. So that part came easy, right? On the other hand, I'm an extrovert, but I'm very competitive too, right? During certain times, this is where I would need to figure out where do I focus myself on a goal instead of just having a good time, right?
Gotcha. And there's that balance, right? There's the idea you want to have fun while we're racing. It's still a leisure time activity, but you have to honor the race by working as hard as you can, right? And matching those. And one can't be sacrificed of the other. That's a hard thing for a lot of people because very often if that's out of balance, the fun versus the competitiveness, you're not having a good time. And then that has an impact on the rest of the team because they can pick up on that.
And I think this is where it became important. Like when I started racing, we never talked about team goals, right? Okay, we're doing whatever race we're doing, 24 hours gets together race and what have you. But now I am always start to talk to my team, hey, what are the goals? What are the team goals for, what are the personal goals, what the team goals? Because then if time comes in the race, right, and somebody say, no, I really want to do that. And I will say, hold on, we talked about, hey, this is our goal. This doesn't kind of fit the purpose. So I think, and it's also important then when you talk about goals, maybe the goals mean different people for different things to different people, right? So somebody might say, if I have somebody who's relatively new, they'll say, hey, I want to learn from you. And I said, yeah, but let's talk about what it means, right? It doesn't mean we're both going to be on the maps, right? We're going to stop for half an hour at every checkpoint, right? So I think discussing this ahead of time, I think it works better for me.
When we, one of our early episodes, we had two researchers on, and they studied adventure racing, and in that episode, what they talked about out loud was that they learned that the teams that were effective during the race made it a point to talk about expectations and goals prior to the race itself. That they didn't wait until they were in the high stress environment of the race to say, well, no, I want to do this. I want to do that. You have to have that conversation early. What do you find when you want to bring people along into the sport? And a lot of people, I think, want to race with you because of your strong reputation and your personality. What advice do you like to give the people who are brand new when they're just starting out? What do you want them to take away from early racing with you?
Don't try to be me. We already have me. right? So figure out who you are, what your strengths are, and what you could contribute, right? What it doesn't have to be big contribution, right? But I feel like the base teams that I've been to, we all bring something different, but combined strength is just makes us so much better if there's just 3 copies of the same person, 4 copies of the same person. Learn from everybody, right? But figure out who you are and what sport means to you.
And the idea being like, and know yourself and lean into who you are, right?
Yeah.
That this is who I am. This is what I want to be like. And as a result of knowing myself, I can then contribute better to the team. And to your point, you can't be somebody else. Because I always feel inside of a race setting, and I don't care if it's 6 hours or 6 days, you can't hide your true personality. Like it's going to come out. Like you can only pretend to be somebody else for so long. And then eventually it's going to 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to come to the surface. You might as well have it done earlier and right away.
Yeah, it might come out earlier than 2 o'clock in the morning. So
it might be 3 hours into the race when you're all lost. So you've made some pretty big jumps. So in our pre-recording conversation, you talked about how that you've done in the last 9 months, you've done 3 expedition races.
Yes.
And I want to save the most recent for the last conversation. I want to come to that because the most recent was what drove Megan to refer you to me. Walk us through your decision to jump from 24 30-hour races into expedition level racing. And what was your first expedition race?
My first expedition race actually was Expedition Oregon 2022, which Jason now calls Snowmageddon Edition. I got lucky, because I got to race that one with Sherry Himes and Brenda Carlton. So, 2 legends of the sport. This being my first expedition race. And it's also, this is probably, if people remember, this is where we got snowed in, we pushed bikes through the snow, there's checkpoints covered with snow. And when we finished, both Brenda and Sherry said, that is the hardest race we ever done. Which I thought, all right. So I hope the other expedition races will be easier.
Right.
in a sense. So that was that. So I think going back to Oregon this year was kind of, hey, maybe some unfinished business, because a couple of stages like Whitewater, one of them, when we did in 2022, we didn't do well. We just did the first 5 miles, kind of swam, and after swam just took a ride pretty much to the next TA on that 22, and there was now a trekking leg, but we kind of didn't do well. So I feel like, hey, there's maybe some unfinished business. I want to come back and actually do the course.
Well, it's funny, and that was a legendary race. And I remember tracking your progress very, very closely, especially near the end where you had the trek up to the top of the mountain, and you had to go down the other side. And we were sitting home refreshing the dots all the time and watching. And it was amazing. And we knew the conditions were white out. It was crazy. But I believe, did you almost get blown away? Is that Sherry told me that story? So what? So to set the scene for our audience here, it was near the end of the race. It was a full-on race. I mean, they call it America's toughest race. They weren't lying. This was a tough race. You have a major ascent. It's the last trek, I believe, right? Because it was a trek to a paddle to the finish.
Yep.
What was it? What was your experience like on that mountain?
So, so we were by ourselves, right? So somehow, I think we're teams ahead of us, teams are behind, but we were ourselves, and we navigated up pretty well. Towards the end, it just started getting whiteout conditions, strong winds. So we actually were using our ice axes to not fall down. Literally, we keep going. The checkpoints right on the top of the mountains. We're going, and we kind of huddled together, and there's zero visibility, right? So even if it's 3 steps away from you, you could not really see it, right? So we kind of start and talk about it. Hey, what we should we maybe, just get out of there. And then Brenda says, I am not getting out of here without that checkpoint. I said, all right. So I think that's a decision point. And I remember, Brenda had those kind of a white gray hair, right? So she had a hood on, and she had a couple of, if you could imagine, like locks of hair on each side. And I keep remembering, it's like there's a character in the Game of Thrones. It's that White King. That's kind of when they do the Ice Wars. He has this like hair going on. And here's Brenda with those white hair with like 2 poles are saying like, no, I'm a king of a mountain. We're not going to get away until we get the checkpoint. And I looked at her, and I remember saying to myself, this is the absolute stupidest thing I ever done in my life.
Like, what in the hell am I doing here right now?
Yes. But we got the checkpoint. The problem is when going back down, again, we were by ourselves, totally whiteout conditions. There were some bowls that were the avalanche zones, right? We said, you know what? It's just not safe. And we came back down off that mountain.
Yeah, you backtrack. I think you went out the way you came up.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. We remember we were following
I feel like it's still a good decision. Although we saw some teams of them going down, some teams are going up. Maybe following up those teams and maybe tracking down there with them might have been a good thing, but it's kind of hard to sell at this point.
Yeah, I think you kind of played it safe, right? In a good way.
Yes.
Right. The idea like you got the checkpoint. I remember watching the tracking. You had got the checkpoint, and teams that had gotten it previously had gone off the east side of the mountain and they trekked down. The decision I think that your team made was you got the checkpoint. You knew the way you came up, and you knew that once you got low, you could come around. And that's what you did. You went back west, came to the bottom, and went around. It added distance, but it was a safe call because you weren't running the risk of going off the other side of the mountain and getting cliffed out in those conditions, right? So that was, and you weren't the only team to make that decision. Other teams made that same. Other teams also skipped that section entirely. By the way, some teams went, and then it was, and so clearly. So that was your first introduction to expedition racing, right? And that was a full on heck of a race to watch, heck of a race to see happen.
That was the first race that I realized, I'm falling asleep on my bike. I get that like black screen when you probably had it too. You're biking and all of a sudden, whoa, what was that? Yeah.
So on the back end of that first expedition experience, which was, as we said, was a really very intense experience. What did you take away from there when it came to like your sleep deprivation, your nutrition, your foot care? Like, what did you learn? Because that's a big leap. 24 hours to multiple days is a big leap. And you're all about personal improvement. What did you change about your approach to racing as a result of an expedition race?
So my body actually handled it well. I would have to say the body, I didn't feel like it was a fitness lacking. But I feel like organizing. I need to get better with food and drink, right? I ate and drink, but I could have done it better. And again, this race being so cold, I had enough of clothing with me, but mentally, I guess, when it comes to it, because I remember the first 2 days, I just keep complaining to Brenda, I'm cold, like literally nonstop. And I remember Brenda at some point stopped, looked at me and said, all right, what would you want me, what would it help if what could I do or say to you right now to make you feel better?
I hear what you're telling me. Yeah. I know what you're saying. You can keep saying it all you want, but guess what? I'm not going to get you any warmer. But hey, you keep saying it out loud.
But that was nice. That kind of realized me. All right, I should really stop. Right, this is and they trying to be as nice as they can. So I need to take responsibility. And day 3, I figured, okay, you're coming to the TA and there's like 3 inches of snow in your bike box, and that's okay, right? That's what you sign up for, and that's what we're going to keep going. So it took me a couple of days to really put myself.
And in that way, you were really lucky because by racing with Barbara and Shari, right? And it was a 3-person team, right? I'm not leaving anybody out.
Brenda, and Shari.
Brenda. I'm sorry, Brenda. Brenda and Shari and you. So by racing with Brenda and Shari, like whether you realize it or not, you raced with 2 expert veteran adventure racers, and it was like you were going to school.
Absolutely. Yes. And we'll come to TA, and Sherry will have a jet boil going. In no time, we'll have a hot meal and everything else. Yeah, it was all kind of, they had it all down.
So it sounds like to me that you took a bit of a leap, someone who had never done an expedition before, 2 veteran racers, veterans, champions, very strong. Was there any part of you that you thought to yourself, I'm outclassed here, like I'm nervous racing with them, or did you realize that you were going to get to go to school and you were going to learn a lot?
I think it's the latter, because I feel like I train enough as far as fitness going. I think physically I was I think my body will handle it, right? It's just would my mind handle it?
Good.
That part I was afraid of. That part I had concerns with.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I always joke too, when you race with multiple people, you don't need to be the fastest person, you just don't need to be the slowest.
Yes.
Right. And there is, I've said this before, there is no greater motivation to get out training than to avoid being the anchor on the team. I will turn myself inside out. I will not be the person they're waiting for. Like that. And so it's like on a Saturday morning when you're riding 100 miles, it's like, that's why you're doing it, because you can't handle, don't make me be the person that slows the team down.
And I actually ended up muling for some part of that race.
Got it.
I
Okay.
ended up carrying some. I think Brenda had a bad day on foot once because we were like trekking through the snow. Sometimes we had snowshoes. Sometimes we say, hey, no. But yeah, I ended up muling. So that made me kind of feel even better, right? Hey, not only I'm racing, I'm
you're not
carrying
just keeping
other
up, you're
people's
actually contributing. Right,
I'm
right.
carrying other
You're
people's
adding to
stuff.
the experience. Yeah. And that's a great thing. That's a great feeling too, when you realize, and this is good for the newer racers, that when you race with racers that are stronger than you, because on paper they had more experience than you, right? Physical strength is debatable, but on paper they had more experience. When you realize that you could hang with them, and when you realize that you could be alongside them, that's just a great shot of confidence and enthusiasm, right? Because you're not dragging them down, right? That's a great feeling to have. Mm-hmm. So going from that, clearly a crash course in expedition level racing, what was next for you?
The next one, the Endless Mountains 2023.
Okay. So that was the second iteration, right? Because
second
this year,
iteration.
25, no 24,
yes.
23 was no, that was the one.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And how was that?
And that I raced with Donna Boots, Ellie Corain, and Megan Moore.
Okay.
Moore. Now he told me about the last names. I don't know. Hopefully I pronounced your name right.
It's close.
Yes.
You got it.
Yeah.
Megan, and by the way, Megan's the reason you're here. So if you mispronounced her name, she has to live with that. So walk us, because I remember seeing you on that course. How did that race go?
I think we had a great race, and I feel like this is where I went from, hey, being a newbie on the team to, hey, I'm going to lead the team, put the team together, right?
It was a transfer.
Yeah. Although I think we raced as Ubuntu. Now I'm saying we were not fragile flowers. Yeah. I think we raced as Ubuntu. Yeah. So Megan, I guess Megan put together a team, but I feel like I was a lead navigator, so maybe.
And so clearly from that experience, so you took the apprenticeship, if you will, from Oregon. You then brought it into this team. You raced with three racers. You had a team of four, varying ability levels, varying skill levels. And I remember seeing you on the course multiple times, and it looked like you were having a great time. I mean, it was a hard race, don't get me wrong, but like it feels like you leaned back heavily on all of your learning.
Yes. And I think we kind of made a great decision this race. And I guess that's when it comes to the all-female teams, right? We know we're not going to sweep the course, right? So for us, the question usually, hey, when do you cut things? So, hey, and sometimes it may be early on when nobody really wants to skip the checkpoints early on, but sometimes it pays back. So I think for us, it's kind of figuring out how to do our own race. Right, where to skip, kind of how to, hey, maybe we should slip this or do that kind of a thing. I think that worked well for us in that race, but it's a great course too. That was kind of a huge, big legs, right? There was that 24-hour track we did this, which kind of I remember fondly because there was no trails whatsoever. That was kind of new. Grant and Abby always put together great courses. So I had a really great memories of that. We had fantastic paddle. We had 2 Barracudas. And when we looked at the finish times, like we were just a little slow and bend racing on those Barracudas. We really great paddling. And I feel like this is where, because we had the team had everybody have kind of contributing differently, right? And this is where I kind of come to realizing how well it works when just everybody have different personality. They contribute something different, and it just makes teams so much stronger.
Yeah, and you meshed really nicely on that race, and so for you, it was great to go from like the newer racer, more experienced racer, having this great experience and really enjoying yourself on the course and applying all of that learning, and. So now, but you still got the bug now. So that was 2 years ago. Now, you've gone to, in the past, once again, 9 months, you've done 3 expedition races. What have you done?
So I did Expedition Alaska in August of 2024. I did Magnificent in New Zealand in January of this year. And I just did Expedition Oregon solo.
Okay. So let's run through those 3 races there. Colorado, mountains, hills. Who'd you race with?
No, not Colorado, Alaska.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Alaska.
Yes.
Who did you race with?
So I raced with Donna Boots, and then I raced with Jennifer Tartini and Kelly Moyes. So we kind of, and again, this is where sometimes I think hard parts of putting together all-female team is finding the teammates for the expedition race, because for 24 hours easier, but hey, who have time to take a week off to travel far?
Right. And so you run the risk because the team is you're a little bit less familiar with them as personality wise. And so that's another factor. And that's also across all genders, right? The idea that you're just throwing a team together and off you go. And so it sounds like you had to work some things out on the course.
But we did actually do a 24-hour race. Once we kind of figure out who is racing, we came and we did Chattanooga. I checked Chattanooga 24 race in the south. So I think when time came for Alaska, we kind of knew each other's personalities better. Yeah,
gotcha. You had that sense there, and that was a tough race, if I remember correctly, in terms of the navigation, in terms of the distances.
Yeah, and it was, and again, this is I think it's kind of I'm progressing as a racer. I'm trying to figure out what's exciting for me, what's in the race is exciting for me. Why should I do this race? Why should the other? And I think the destination races and just the beauty of places becomes kind of really high on my list. And this is why kind of I think this is why Alaska happened for me, right? And I'm glad I did it because Jeff just showcased one of the most beautiful areas in the country. Even like all the biking legs were we just biked the Resurrection Trail and what have you. Sometimes, especially in the biking part, it just sometimes so point to point. But in this course design, it was just really, really fantastic. And the trekking legs and the biking legs. We paddled the river and the salmon was swimming next to us in our pack rafts. I don't know if I'm going to ever get a chance to experience that again. That was definitely Alaska, one of a kind.
Classic race. And I know that for those who are intrigued by that, and I don't remember the media from this iteration, but I know over on Vimeo, the old Expedition Alaska, there's a movie that you could actually watch, and I know that Jason's in it and Abby Perkis is in it, and there's that was a wild race. So those who want to get a taste of Alaska, check that out. But then destination-wise, you got a big-time destination because then you went to New Zealand for the Magnificent.
Yes.
So what would now the Magnus brothers, right, putting a big race together, bringing an ARWS experience to New Zealand, different continent, different world. What was that like?
So that was one of the longest races I've done because that was 6.5-day race, right? But that's another thing, right? Destination. So I actually been to New Zealand about 6 years prior, and I always wanted to come back because the beauty of the country just took me over, and I keep thinking, I definitely, if I have any possibility, I want to come back. And when the race came up, I said, perfect. Actually, I was already trying to convince my husband to go to New Zealand anyway that year, just on vacation. So when the race came in, it was just perfect opportunity to do that. And again, Jason and Andy showcased the area just so beautifully. All the trekking legs and the biking legs and paddling. It's just very unique, right? Nothing very different from Northeast, right? When you and I are racing.
Right. So that's my question. My question is, so what was the racing out of the country, racing on the other side of the world compared to the Northeast? What did you have to do? Not as much the racing itself, but the logistics of getting down there. Like, how did that work out for you? You brought your bikes, you packed your bikes, you had to go to the travel. Like, how did all the pre-race travel go for you? And what did you learn about that experience that would be good for the listeners?
So I got myself a South Hemisphere compass. That's one thing, because I contacted Mark Latanzi. I said, hey, do you have him? He said, yours probably work, but might not be the best, but I don't carry any Southern Hemisphere. So I ordered one from Compass, I think, who is a rootstock sponsor. I was traveling. I actually traveled with my bike a fair amount before, so that wasn't new. Me and my husband do actually ultra cycling events. We're doing randonneuring. I don't know if you heard about it. It's when people ride their bikes for like between 200 to 1,200 K.
Yeah, it's like 600K, and it's like you're on the bike for days and days and days. The Randonneers are the adventure races of the cycling world.
Exactly. So we actually did a Paris in 2023 together. So when we flew with 2 bikes and all of it, although it's less gear, just bikes. There's bikes, no boats. So I think logistics of that wasn't necessary that
it was easier for you. It was in some way wasn't that hard for you. Had that, but because that's a big bat for a lot of people who want to race international. They're intimidated by the need to bring all of the stuff around the world.
Again, think about as far as flying with the bikes. A lot of, at least within the US those days, a lot of airlines fly your bike for free. Yes. Right, Delta, you fly your bike for free. American, you fly your bike. I mean, when I say for free, as long as it's going to cost you as much as a suitcase, right? So I feel like people just need to be aware of it sometime, because actually at the latest race at Oregon, I saw somebody actually was shipping all the bikes and the gear, and I thought that seems to be kind of excessive, because I know it's not cheap. But part of traveling, I guess, I travel a fair amount abroad. I actually have a global entry even at this point, just to cross. So that part, plus everybody speaks English. The only thing they drive on the outside of the road. I guess if anything, that thing I wish I could avoid, but I didn't hit my car like I hit it 6 years ago before. So
the biggest challenge there too is that you need to the sleep, the change in time zone, all of that. Like you begin the race kind of behind the 8 ball of it from a sleeping perspective. It gets kind of hard that way. Yeah, I always tell people, if you're going to fly with your bike, if you're not going out of a national hub like a Dallas or a New York or a DC or an LA, if you're flying at a regional airport, always check to make certain that the plane that you're going on can take your bike box. Because I've heard nightmare stories about people who are flying regionally to get to a larger airport, they show up and they're listening, those bike boxes can't get on this plane. So always check to make certain that that's going to happen. That's a piece of advice that I always give.
And I guess put air tags on everything that you have, right? Because, you can only fit that much in your carry-on. So you end up some kind of gear checked out. And it's really nice when me and my husband travel, we have 4 air tags, and he checks his 2. I have my 2. We hear before the takeoff, all right, all our stuff is with us.
Hopefully they're underneath you on the plane. We had an air tag coming back from the Faroe Islands last time. We had our bikes were all still in the Faroe Islands. Like, we'll get them in a few days, and 5 days later they were dropped on our front porch. So Claire, so you had Alaska, you had the Magnificent.
Two things about Magnificent, just kind of as a progression things. Right? First, it was the longest race I ever done. It was 6.5-day race, and we raced almost all 6.5 days. And this is also the race where we carried a lot of stuff with us. I don't know how much you heard, but there was a bike rafting leg and raft biking leg, the way I want to call it. So there was a leg when we were pack rafting with our bikes attached to the rafts. And we're talking about pack rafting for was 30-mile pack raft on a flat water. So it was a lot. And we had white caps and all of that. And we have 2 double pack rafts. We have MRSs. And then we biked with pack rafts attached to the bikes for another 40 miles over huge mountains. So, and I was carrying one of those 2 pack rafts on my bike. So I feel that kind of gives everything put everything in different perspective after finishing that race too. Because I remember Andre Anderson was there from Team Visibility, and we were coming down to last TA together, pushing those bikes with that stuff up the hill. And she said, first I was kind of complaining, and now I'm thinking, now that I know I could actually bike with all that stuff attached, would be so much easier to bike without that kind of a thing, right? Gives you a different perspective what your body could do and what adventure you can take on. Yeah.
Well, you're right. What they did was they offered you a physical challenge that was you had never experienced before, right? That much weight, that much bike for that long. And after you do something like that, everything else gets a lot easier.
Yes. Right.
We're not carrying that along. And I think that's a really good point for our listeners to hear, the fact that you went through that experience, right? You went through that and you were given a physical component that was beyond what you had done previously. And once you did it, it expanded your understanding of what you can do. Right. And isn't that what venture racing is kind of all about? The idea, we do these increasingly more difficult things, realize we can do them, and then therefore feel better about ourselves and realize that we have more capacity. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, because it's a challenge, right? It whatever that means. And for some people, it might be winning a race a challenge. For some people, just crossing a finish line, right? You kind of, and I like how we could all set up our own challenges, right, for the race. And when we achieve them, yeah, that's where satisfaction. I think it's for all of us goal oriented. Whatever your goal is, there's a great place for you in the sport.
Speaking of being goal oriented, now your most recent race, right? You went back out, America's Toughest Race. You went back out to Bend Racing, and you raced as a solo. So now you're very team oriented. You've had great teammates. You've done a lot of races, but now you're going out there on your own. Walk us through that. What got you into a solo race?
So I've done, I think, one solo race for the last. That's my fourth year of solo, doing a solo race. It came out as a trying out first, just because, hey, how fast could I go just by myself? Because most of the times I'm the strongest person on the team, especially on foot, because I have an ultra running background, right? I could track forever, and I like tracking. So when people get asked what's your favorite discipline, you usually don't say here anybody asked talking about tracking. Everybody say biking or paddling, and I love tracking. So hey, what could I do? Hey, kind of different challenge. It's another challenge too, right? So I think I did a Pisgah in 2022 as my first race in Carolina, and then I did a Maine Summer Adventure Race solo the following year. And after that, my husband told me, honey, you should do a solo race every year. You're so happy after you finish a solo race.
And I these pesky teammates to worry about.
But it's also the thing that I don't feel if I make a mistake as a navigator, I don't beat myself up, right? If something happened that I feel like I could have done better on a team, I don't have this thing happening to me in a solo because all right, it happened, it happens. So it
takes off the pressure, like by being. It's all a big trade-off, right? I mean, you lose the pressure of having to worry about your teammates, but you have no teammates. You're out there by yourself. Yes.
And I feel like it's kind of multiplies all the things that I'm not good at, like organizing OTAs, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a very different experience, but I kind of enjoy that. So and then I did Maine, and then I did a Two Rivers last year, which was 36-hour race, and I really enjoyed it. I remember kind of coming down one of those Rock Creek things, the trekking leg towards the finish. I just took the time, and it was beautiful weather, fall foliage, and I just took a time, and I thought, oh, damn, I love adventure racing, and I really like enjoying these things by myself, being in the woods. So I guess this comes to it, right? Just being in the woods for myself in a long period of time, finding my way out, that really appeals to me. It appeals me being on a team as well, but appeals to me as a person doing by myself.
You know, when I talk to solo racers, very often the thing that they point to as the challenge is that you're truly on your own, right? Yep. And if you find yourself lost, you can't turn to a teammate and say, "Hey, do me a favor. What do you think?" You're by yourself, you and the maps. Clearly, you're an expert navigator. There's no doubt about that at all. But do you run into what do you do when you run into navigational challenges and there's no one around to consult with? Do you backtrack? Do you move cautiously? Like, how do you control for the fact that you're the sole person doing the navigation?
I mean, I'm trying to figure out if I had a good example when I got lost my very first solo race, which was Pisgah, right? It was a bike point. It was biking at night point. I came in, and the point was off the trail, kind of in the bushes. So I put my bike in. It was dark. I went to get the point. I coming back to the trail, and my bike is not there. I'm on the wrong trail. I'm all by myself.
Okay.
Right. I have a map with me, and it should be there, but it's not there. So that was I think probably the biggest that I could think of when things solo happened. The mistake happened.
So what did you do?
So I kind of walked around, looked back to the checkpoint. It should be there, but again, it's kind of pitch black, and my bike had lights on it. You would think I would see it if I turn my headlamp off, or helmet light off. No, still pitch black. Then I thought, you know what? Just take a few minutes, eat something. There might be other racers who will come and find you.
Right.
And
because
sure
you're
enough,
at the checkpoint, right? You're back at the checkpoint.
Because
so you know where you are.
Yes, yeah. So within maybe 5 or 10 minutes, an all-female team come in. Mei Lee and Lee, they race as what's the team name? Don't ask why. You probably see them. They usually race in the South a lot. And they found me. And we found my bike together. And ended up actually racing part of that course together. And I actually ended up getting flat, and they kind of helped me with the flat. So I guess maybe that part of the race was not a solo race part, but I remember kind of I don't think I panicked again because I kind of knew where I was. So it was not a kind of, hey.
Yeah, you weren't on a track by yourself.
WTF kind of a thing, yeah.
But I think it's really funny, and it's a really good piece of advice that there are many people who out of nervousness would just begin to stumble around. And you were like, you know something? I'm going to catch my breath here. I'm going to eat a little something. I'm going to wait a second. So you learned that constant activity isn't necessarily leading to your rescue. You chose to be still, and that by being still, that then helped you to get found again.
Yeah, but I do a lot of raw gains, right? So I feel like I've navigated a lot, and I feel like this is where you become a better navigator when you figure out if you make a mistake, how to correct yourself, right? And this is one thing when I start navigating, I realize running around is not helping you at all. No. Right. If anything, you need to calm down, take your time, and kind of, okay, what is my kind of escape route here, right here? There's always a road here or the trail here if you just go north or go south, right? Those are always an option. It's just stop running around, take your time, kind of assess your situation, kind of a thing.
Right. And to your point, and I learned that too when I've done some navigation training when I'm out there by myself, that we sometimes mistake any movement for forward progress. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you will get yourself more lost, and you'll get unlost by slowing down, finding where you are. And because all of a sudden, if the adrenaline kicks in, you're just wandering around. Yeah, exactly.
And you get more frustrated, which means you're less effective on figuring out the solution. Right. So, yeah.
That's a fantastic piece of advice for the aspiring navigators out there. And I do agree with you. I think that people will be very, very well served if they want to work navigation skills, go to a local orienteering club and go solo. It's low stakes. Orienteering maps are usually much more specific than adventure racing maps. It's a great way to develop that skill set.
It's a great training wheels. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So now that you've you did very well there. You were out of the 24 teams. You were 17th out of 24 overall. You were the only solo female finisher. You were 6 out of 8 for the solos. Big race, hard race. What did you learn as a solo in such a big race?
So I was thinking a lot about my teammates. I have to say, kind of on the 24-hour race, I was just go, go, go. On this race, I was really it's one of those things, when you give up something, only to realize how much you're missing them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and my 2 favorite teammates who I'm actually going to race in Bentonville is Ellie Courain and Donna Boots. And I feel like we bring everything very different to the table, right? Which I think works great for me. That Donna is 65, right? But she's the most fit. I don't think I'll ever be as fit as she's
so
at 65.
Fit. Yeah, I mean, she is just, her Facebook posts about her training are like, I feel like I'm watching Rocky IV. I mean, she's just incredible.
But she also have this like a child at heart that if she sees that rock crop, she needs to climb it, right?
Yeah.
If she see
she's a big kid.
The tree, it's her. So and actually racing Oregon, because there's so many things and outcroppings and the top of the mountain checkpoints, I thought, Donna would have so much fun of it. So kind of channeling my inner Donna. And versus Ellie is very different person. Ellie is very, you know Ellie pretty well from Ira too.
We did Shenandoah Epic together. She was great. Yeah, she's a lot of fun.
But she's very composed, right?
Yes.
And very kind of even keel. So for me, like every time I will kind of get edgy and what have you. There are many moments like this. I keep thinking, hey, let me think of Ellie.
And what would Allie do? Right.
What would Ellie do? And Ellie is usually a voice of reason, right? While I'm trying to do 3 things at once, and Ellie would say something, hey, maybe we should do this first, so we don't need to worry about this later, kind of a thing, right?
Gotcha.
So I think I ended up thinking about them, I think, a lot, right? In that race, just to kind of, hey, kind of channeling myself to think of them as a part of the race. But another thing, it was, although it's a race, but I feel like that was a journey of self-discovery in a sense, right? And I think this is the first time they allow expedition races to do solo, right? I don't know if they'll allow it again. That was kind of an experiment, as Jason said. So going in, I think, although I've done racing, both solo and expedition, never been combined. So trying to figure out how it's going to work was, hey, maybe work it, maybe doesn't. What exactly is going to happen? But pretty early on, I realized that although I could go farther as solo, faster, I need to rest more to keep my mind sharp.
Interesting.
Because
do your teammates act as regulators for that? By not having anyone around to slow you down, did that have you have a tough time with that? When I say slow you down, I don't mean that your teammates can't keep up with you, but not having someone outside your body saying to you, Olga, we're going we're in the red here a little bit. Like, let's back it down a little bit. Did you lack that ability to self-regulate?
Not in this kind of a sense, but more of hey, what's our next plan is, right? Kind of taking a toll, right? Versus just going. Hey, let's kind of assess the situation, right? I think if I would have been with a teammate, I would have assessed my situation more frequently, right? Than I've done it for myself.
How many days did you race? How many days were you on the course solo?
4.5-ish.
That's a long time to be in your own head.
Yes, and I guess I could talk about the lowest point in that race when it came in for me, which was the first night, right? Going into 4.5-day race, and in the past when I raced expedition, we figured out, okay, if I sleep 4 hours a night, I'm pretty good. So I figured, hey, so this being 4.5 race, so maybe I'll do like 3 4-hour stops, which means maybe skip the first night and go through that. But I guess one thing going into the race was that even before you race, right, there's all of a sudden, there's all that organization and all that logistics that you need to go through. And usually you kind of divide and conquer that kind of a thing. And here you have nobody to divide and conquer with, right?
It's so just you, right? If something gets left behind and there's no backup, like, hey, do you have a spare tire? Or hey, do you have extra food? It's like you are by yourself.
Yeah. And certain things you kind of knew in advance, right? So I knew, hey, I really don't know anything about my bike maintenance. So I actually asked my friend Anthony to show me how to replace a shifter cable, because it happens to us in Magnificent. Or how do I do this kind of a thing? Or how I replace the derailleur. I actually did it both of those on my bike. The other things you couldn't really do ahead of time, like they keep changing the weights for the bins and the bike boxes and the pedal bags up until like almost the night off. Yeah. So as I was trying to juggle all this kind of a thing, what happened, I put my food for the stage 3, 4, and 5, which was total about 18 hours, in the wrong bin. So I got to TA2, which supposed to I have this food for 18 hours. I had no food for 18 hours, which included my caffeine, included my sunscreen, so all of the, including my electrolytes. So I had some food left over from the first 2 stages. So what happened, because I had very little food, I tried to stretch it as much as I can, which I ended up not even eating what I had, because I got so paranoid that something bad is going to happen. Guess what? Something bad happened. I came to a little orienteering loop stage at night. I came in and I navigate on food. I say, hey, that's my jam, right? This is, I feel I can excel. I get 1 checkpoint, and on the way to second, I realize I'm like totally bonking. And I don't think that happened to me in a race before. So going through that bonking experience all on my own at night on the first evening of a 4.5-day race.
It's going great.
That was a self-discovery, right? You have to tell.
First of all, there's no teammate to notice you were bonking. There was no
Yes.
teammate to give you extra food. And I got to tell you, Olga, like sometimes, like speaking for me, I don't always trust my feelings. And so I would say to myself, like, do I really feel bad, or am I talking myself into feeling bad? Like,
But what could I tell? I'm feeling bad because I couldn't get the next temp point, right? That for me means, okay, something is going on. You're good on food. Your usual navigation is not a problem, but you're having problem to getting a checkpoint, which should be pretty easy.
Right.
This is where I kind of, this is not really working right. And I'm looking at myself and thinking, I still have a bike leg to the TA where all my food and my sleeping stuff is. So that was a decision point. And I said, right. And also another thing, because Jason did pretty decent job hiding the flags. He didn't call it hiding the flags, but there was no reflective flags.
Right.
A lot of flags, instead of flags, had like a sticker, really tiny, that you really need to look around. So not on this flag. This flag had most of the flags, but still I kind of realized, all right, so let's kind of cut the losses here maybe. So, okay, so we're still 4 days left in the race, right? You're not really feeling well. You're not hydrated. There is no food in you. It's night. It's hard to see. You only have one pair of eyes instead of 3 or 4.
Right.
So keep going with this and trying to do this. So what are your options? What's going to happen
is that the decline is going to get exponentially steeper.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Once you start going off the cliff, then it's straight downhill. Then it's more hungry, more tired, more irritable, and then you're falling apart.
So I thought, you know what, this is just, I think I need to cut the losses and forget about that O track. And I just, attempted the second checkpoint, didn't work. I turned back, came back to the TA, and I said, hey, I'm just out of there. I'm just going to bike back to get to the next TA and take a nap. And I think that's what I did. And that was really hardest bike leg because I don't know how slow I was going at night. And they included a lot of single track, which was really great course design. I really loved that. There was, I think I don't know how I would say 80% maybe of the course was single track, which was fantastic, and a different kind of single track too. But, doing it by myself at night was kind of not that easy part for me. But again, I came back to the TA, and this is where TA were supposed to get more on the water again. They want us to start early. And I came back at 5 a.m. and I come to volunteer and I said, all right, I'm checking in and I'm going to sleep. And the volunteer looks at me and said, I don't think you want to sleep because you want to start on the water early. And I looked at him back and said, no, I want to sleep.
Yeah. Thanks, volunteer. I'm good. I'll let you know.
So I got up my coffee, I got my sleeping bag, and I got maybe 4 hours of sleep. Okay. And I have to say that seems to be really turn the race around for me. After that, all my experiences were, I'm feeling fantastic. I am enjoying this moment myself in the race. But again, I realized that I really need to sleep every night because the mind, once you make that mistake, the recovery is just sometimes not an option.
And there's no, what I've learned about, there's no bounce back aside from sleeping and eating.
Yeah.
Like you don't just turn the corner like, oh, I just happen to feel better now. You need calories, you need rest, and only then you can do it. So credit to you for reading it on the first night and not just plunging forward because you'd still be out there, right? I mean, it was, and you knew that. And so clearly, I'm assuming that while you were frustrated with the need to do that on the first night, when you got like the day 3, you're kind of like, this is great. I'm having a good time. Like you knew you saved your race. Oh
yeah, and I even like that. Because that second whitewater, that was really, really cool whitewater section too. This is where I actually hit class 3. Right. And I was having a blast. I didn't swim. I swam once, but not actually through the rapid. I swam once when I did the portage and trying to get back in the boat. Yeah. So I had a good time. I was all by myself. And then single pack raft, that's another thing. One thing I'm thinking, the hardest part in this race would be flat water and a single pack raft, right? It's that kind of rubber ducky kind of a thing, but I brought a bow bag and I put a bow bag up front and I filled it up with all mandatory gear, and I think it helped a lot with tracking. My boat
Helped
was
the track,
going so much. Yeah. So I had a blast. First was whitewater, and then through the canyon. Those both pack rafting legs were designed just so fantastically. I really wish I had a GoPro or something to record with this. So that was really self-assuring for me. So finishing that leg put me right back in a great mindset. Hey, I could do it. I've trained for this. There is so much more of those wonderful places.
How did you like all the special challenges they had? They had a shooting challenge, right? What was that like?
Oh, did you see my pictures from a shooting challenge? There is a good shooting pictures. So of course you come back from, before my next sleep, right? And they say, right, before you get your maps, you need to shoot. I said, what do you mean? Oh, yeah, we have a BB guns. And then I think it's going back to my Russian roots, because I grew up during Soviet times, right? And in high school and in college, I think we needed to pass those tests of GTO, which is translated as I am ready for work and defense. And they included like a short swim, and then I think push-ups for the girls, pull-ups for the boys, maybe a truck, like some kind of a run, and a shooting out of a rifle. So I've not done that much, but I've done it those years.
You'd held a weapon before, right?
Yeah,
As a child,
and I kind of know, right? So you kind of get it on the target, you breathe a little, you stop breathing, kind of shoot. So they give me a rifle. I said, could I lay down? They say, you can do whatever you want. So I lay down and I shoot. I have a lot of fun doing that. Yeah, that was kind of exciting. It's fun to feel like, I feel like a kid doing this kind of a thing.
And to their credit, to the Magnus's and Ben Racing's credit, that they brought a level of lightheartedness to it. They clearly had a lot of fun with the Wild West theme. They had a lot of fun with what they were doing and how that went together.
Yes.
And so clearly, it sounds like this most recent race of yours. Just there were so many boxes that were checked off for you, right? The distance, the getting in your own head, the self-discovery, the pack rafting, the knowing when to take a break. And so that became like a crash course for you in your adventure racing skills. Like you really kind of leveled up during that event, it sounds like, do you think you're at a different level now as an adventure racer because of that?
I don't know, Brian, if I want to put myself in a level. I guess for me, it says, hey, I improved, right? I don't know if it's a different level, if I want to.
Well, I'll rephrase the question for you.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you now have more capacity, that you have more ability?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I feel like this race is going to make me a better teammate, too.
So
right?
Solo racing makes you a better teammate. Say more about that.
Yes. Yeah. Because I feel like there's a lot of things that I realize, hey, during organization or during transitions, right? Because if I'm slow, I'm slowing everybody's down, right? Or if I forget something, or if I'm fumbling with something, it's going to affect the team. And when I'm by myself without Ellie or Donna or anybody else there to help me, right? Or point certain things out for me, it's kind of magnified. So I think that race kind of magnified the things that, hey, I could definitely improve upon this, right? So
because the person who suffered was you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Wait a minute. I'm suffering here. If I'm suffering, they're suffering. So I want to get better at it. And they're okay.
And hopefully I remember it the way it's actually happened, right?
Right. Hopefully. Yeah. Well, there's race break. There's a race break.
Yes.
So before you alluded to nationals going down there and racing in this fall, what other races do you have on your horizon? Or are you just going to sit back and wait a little while and see what comes your way?
So me and Donna, I guess when I was racing even in New Zealand, in Oregon, I keep thinking, like, hey, so what's that? Every year I kind of evaluate what motivates me, and I realize the large trekking legs is really what I really enjoy, right? And I thought, hey, I haven't done a 24-hour road games in a while, so I'm gonna do the CNYO road game in the end of June.
Gotcha. Central New York orienteering, right?
Yeah,
so that's
So I'm going to do that. And then I think me, Donna, and Jenny, whom I met at SOAR weekend, are going to do the longest day.
Got it. Good. So you're racing. You're checking off the boxes. Check, 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 and you keep going that way.
And then nationals, I think.
And then after that, you'll sort of see what comes down the road. It sounds like you checked off a lot of destination races, but there's always more out there, right? Good thing about adventure racing is that you never quite fill your bucket up, right? There's always more to do if you want to do it.
Exactly. And one of the solo racers in Oregon was Javi, who is La Ruta Madre, right? Yep. Race director. So as we're pedaling on the first day, he kept telling me, "Hey, you should."
He's telling you the race the first day.
2027 should be. So I thought, I've never been to Mexico, so maybe
I know,
that
Javi.
will
I love the fact that Javi is the first day of a race, and he's selling you on the race that's going to happen in 2 years. Those race directors, they're always trying to get racers.
What I was concerned though, that he kept following me in that pedaling section, because Jason told us, you guys actually racing as a solo. So we actually expecting you not to team up.
Right. Yeah.
So if you happen to team up, then at some point, this team up or whatever, or if somebody is following you, just tell them, hey, sorry guys, we're really racing solo. So that kind of asking. Oh, hopefully they don't see that Javi just keep following me. But I guess maybe he had ulterior motives. He wanted more women participation in the race, which I think is a great thing to do. So I'm great that people are encouraging that.
And I know that Javi is working very closely with Ben Racing for La Ruta Madre. I emailed him for the Dark Zone to say, listen, like, we want to support you. It's a beautiful race. We had teams on that had raced there this past year. I mean, it deserves all the time and attention that it's getting. So I'm glad that he raced Oregon. I laughed the fact that he was trying to sell you on his race during the start of another race. Like I said, classic race director move. So Olga, it's very clear from knowing your racing, your experience, who you are, that you've become a leader as an adventure racer, but also as a female adventure racer, right? And they kind of travel next door to each other, right? They travel in parallel. And so to close up our time together today, and you've been very generous with your time, so thank you. What message do you want to leave for the community, whether it be fellow female racers or adventure racing in general? What do you want to leave us with?
I think we need to encourage more female participation in endurance sports. And I think it's easier said than done, right? And we see it in all the other sports. Not adventure racing is not the only one, right? I used to joke when I used to run ultra marathons, that's the only place where the line in the men's bathroom is longer than in the women's bathroom, right? So I think we're doing great. There's a Women of Fire initiative that Stephanie Ross is leading, which I think is great, but I think we could do better as a community. So I think if we have more race directors, I don't know what will encourage more female participation, but hey, provide a lot of races provide like free entries that Stephanie distributed. I think those are all great things. Or showcasing some of the Women of AR teams, right? More like Rootstock just recently won overall at Shenandoah, right? That was a great thing. So I hope we could see more, and I think as a community we could see more of this happening. I also hope there will be more women race directors. Like Paula White had such an amazing national scores a few years ago. I really enjoyed that. And then Michelle Foucher put together last year incredible course again. So I hope we could see that too. More of this. So I know we have a lot of female representation in Youth Our Leadership. So I think the more we see women in all kind of areas of adventure racing, the better we become sport as a whole.
There you have it, folks. Episode 141 of The Dark Zone. Thanks for being here, and thanks to Olga for coming on to the show. We sort of had you stop it right there. We could have kept going, but her time is important. Your time is important. So poof. Olga finishes speaking about the importance of female adventure racers and the examples that they set for each other, and it was great to have her on the show. So thank you, Olga, for being a guest. Thanks for being so generous with your time and your wisdom, and hope that you have a great time with all the races that you're doing. And thank you, listeners, for being here. We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Dark Zone. Head to ardarkzone.com to check out our entire catalog. Please like, click, and subscribe. It will be fantastic if you could do that. And remember, if you keep racing, we'll keep talking.